ready. Are you ready, Lilia?
I'm ready. Here we go. And we are live with an excellent connection.
Oh, amazing.
So let's get the party started, as I always say. Hello, planet Earth, and welcome again to Lilia's live streams, mostly on Wednesdays. Thank you so much for joining us to discuss today the difficulty of filtering through all the technical details of a gender transition with our guest here, Leah.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Lilia, as I said, of Facialteam. I'm just a gal who's hijacked this platform to give voice to your concerns. My pronouns are she and hers, and please do let us know in the comments yours. And also let us know if you have any questions about the topic today, and we'll try to incorporate them into our conversation. So we have a YouTube channel, No Idea L, and Leah, who will be chatting with us today about some of her tips on navigating the sea of information on gender transition. So, Leah, tell us a little bit about yourself first before we get going with the topic.
Yeah, so my name is Leah. Hello, everyone. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm 40 years old. I'm a product manager from Switzerland, and I own 2 cats. They're a little bit flat back there in the background. Pretty sure you can see them, and they both have varying intelligence, but we love them both. And I've been transitioning now for almost a year, and I speak on various topics with different people all the time, mostly about research and data-driven things due to the nature of my job and my interests that I have. And a lot of it centers around understanding people's motivations to create better solutions in your everyday life. And I also managed to rip my dress on the left side here, just like a couple minutes ago, but we don't say that to anyone. Yes, that's probably me, yeah, in a nutshell.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a real pleasure. And I feel especially privileged because this is the first time I've had somebody who hasn't had surgery yet, and you're really in the midst of investigating and learning and you know, filtering through all of this sea of misinformation. Sometimes it can be called, and so we're gonna pick your brain a little bit today, and hopefully this will all be useful for our followers. So also, I wanted to ask you, Leah, before we get going, since it's Pride Month, do you mind telling us what does that mean for you?
So Pride Month here in Switzerland, it's not really big in that sense. I mean, you get the usual corporate flags or like the changed company logos, but other than that, it is not very relevant to me from a day-to-day life. But yeah, it's happening. And it usually shows how little people know about the struggles that we have. It's just like something else that is just happening on their day, you know, like maybe, I don't know, cucumber month, and then you have the LGBT month or the Pride month. I don't even know, right? Like, so for a lot of people, this is something that is happening on the sidelines. So I feel being more actively visible is probably more relevant to me right now. Like, for instance, doing the stream here is probably more relevant than hanging up the flag for most people, because they don't know what it means anyways. We're living a little bit secluded here. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's different in every country, and you know, for each individual, we all have our own perspective, and not everyone has privilege to be able to celebrate openly. So thank you for sharing your particular experience. And the way that I want to let everybody know, the way that we sort of met was because you made 2 videos on your YouTube channel. One after having a video consultation with Facialteam, and then another one more recently after having a consultation in Marbella with Facialteam. Can you tell us a little bit about these 2 videos and why you made them?
Yeah, so just like really briefly. So first of all, I like to speak. I also like to look at myself. So videos are great because I can pretend that I'm an expert in something, which I'm clearly not. But in general, I mean, for trans women, the entire topic around female feminization surgery, so like the surgery around the face, is, along with other topics, very, very difficult because it's so new, right? I know a lot of people have a lot of different hobbies. Surgery was not one of mine. And I sort of used these videos as well to document a little bit my voyage that I have undertaken so far. Let's put it that way. And it's also very interesting to see what I thought back then versus to what I know now, to compare. And I'm pretty sure that I'm going to rip myself apart in 3 months about what I'm saying right now. So this is always good. So it's also like it's a mix between documentation and also information sharing, because there is so little around for trans women for various reasons. You know, like sometimes you hate your voice, or you just don't want to have this face immortalized before you change it to another one. That sort of thing. So for me, it was very, very important to document all of this, and also to have and give a little bit of a voice to trans women who are a little bit older than just a regular Instagram crowd that is around 20 or anything. Plus, it's always good to see how other people are conducting their research on these topics. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leah, for being so transparent about that, and also humble and admitting, you know, that you don't know everything, and it's not possible really to know everything because there's just so much out there to learn. And that I think that will be very encouraging for people to understand that you know, it's important to do the best you can, really, at this point. So to get a little bit tiny bit political here, I wanted to ask you, like, I'd be interested in what you have to say about the fact that right now, trans rights is a little bit of, you know, it's in the public eye. And some people are claiming that transition is just this whim that anyone can do in order to gain access to, for example, women's spaces. What do you think about these kinds of things, you know?
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I always wanted to go into the women's toilet, and instead of just walking in, I decided to get through surgeries, hormonal treatment, and all these other fun things that we do. You know, like the voice training, the beard removal. This makes absolute sense. This is the easier way. Yes, absolutely. No. So I mean, it's sometimes a little bit ridiculous, and I feel like the misinformation in that sense is also a little bit on the other side. Oftentimes, what I see is that everybody has an opinion on us. And most of the people actually have problems coming up with anything that ever happened. I would say we have the same ratio of unsympathetic people who, you know, are just not the nicest people as everybody else as well. We're just normal people. But it tends to be such a topic for many people. And I think what's often is being disregarded a little bit is that a lot of this is political because it's a wedge issue, right? Like you want to divide people so you can split the votes. So a lot of it is not a genuine discourse. And the sad thing about it is that we are paying with our mental health. So that's the not so funny part. But yeah.
Mental and physical health.
Yes, exactly. And I can totally recommend to go through surgery just so you can get into women's. This makes no sense. I mean, it is an absolutely ridiculous argument. And if people, in general, I feel like if people know and see and feel what we have to go through just from the outside, there's a good chance that they drop these arguments. That was my experience so far, because everybody pretends that they know what trans women are about, or trans men, if they even know that they exist. Yeah, that has been my experience so far. So no, I don't think a lot about these arguments. Yeah, you know, it is what it is.
Yes, I agree. So you mentioned misinformation, Leah, and trying to figure out what transition is about. And that's really the topic that we want to go into today. So can you tell us, you mentioned to me when we had our rehearsal meeting and we're talking about these things that, and I wrote down a lot of the things that you said. And one of them was, what does it mean to transition? So in that in lines with all the misinformation that you then encountered. Can you tell us a little bit about the story there?
Yeah, so for me, it starts a little bit with what we do with information in general, right? Like, and this is not just we trans women or trans men or trans people or non-binary. It doesn't matter about this. It's like this, we as humans, we're using usually information as a tool to make decisions, right? Most of the time. Sure, sometimes you just consume something because you find it interesting, but oftentimes it is a basis for making decisions for something. And usually the questions that I'm asking myself is, what do I need to do to feel comfortable enough before making a decision? And everybody has different degrees of certainty that they need in order to do something. And you want to make sure that you're not missing anything critical. Also dependent on, obviously, the outcome. I have a different decision process before I decide what I want to have for lunch than what if I gotta go for surgery. I think we can acknowledge that these are the two different decisions. But the thing is, if you are trying to get a good sort of picture of something that you're new to, and this is a big topic for trans people, it has never been easier in my entire life to get information, like to get access fast on information. And it has never been harder at the same time to get the right information. I can give you an example. Like, for instance, for me, 39 years old, pretending to be a guy all my life, no clue about anything, trying to learn makeup. That was a great example for me. So people are giving me helpful advice like, hey, watch some videos. There's everything on YouTube. And I'm like, oh, interesting, right? Like, which ones? So there's 1,000 videos coming up. I don't know who is competent. I don't know who applies to me. My face shape is different than most cis women's face shape. I don't know anything about makeup. I don't know what a foundation is. And then once I know what a foundation is, then I don't know whether I need a powder one, whether I need a liquid one. Do I have oily skin? Do I have dry? I don't know. This is a very daunting topic.
And for all of us.
Yeah, for all of us, right? And I was thinking before I started to transition, oh, every woman knows everything about everything feminine, like makeup, right, or fashion. And it's far from the truth as well, but this is why this is so intimidating. You feel like you have to perform to such a high standard just to partake a little bit in the society where you want to go to. And I think one important thing there to really remember about this is like this impact versus this ability to explore things is varying in what you're trying to do. What I mean with that is, for instance, if you take makeup, I can apply makeup and then I can wash it off. Nothing happened. If I go with hormonal replacement therapy, I can try it out. Not a lot will happen, and you can try it whether this is the right thing for you. But at some point, you have to sort of decide whether you want to keep doing this or not. And with surgery, you do it and bam, right? This is a 15-hour process and then you're through. So you better be sure what you're doing is right. And trans women and trans men are faced with so many choices when it comes to this. And also non-binary, sorry that I excluded you here, but in general, we have so many decisions that we need to make. So the difficulty is to figure out what it is about and then finding the information and then who can I actually trust? Where can I conduct my research and inform my decision? And this is a process that we all go through, but I feel like for us specifically, it is a very individual process and we have to do a lot of the work that I would expect medical professionals would do normally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So we were going to focus on talking about it's keeping on the line of misinformation, right? And trying to filter through all of this anecdotal information. When we spoke before, you talked about some methods that you did, and we specified 3 areas, how to research, how to verify, associated risks, and some other things that you think are important to keep in mind. So do you want to move forward with the difficulty?
Yeah, sure.
How really difficult it is to get objective information.
So I'm sitting here and just telling all these things that sound very important, but it's not really helpful for people either, right? Like these are nice anecdotes. But the thing is, I gather now some experience in the past year on what I feel we often get wrong, and I want to include myself here before everybody starts to murder me, but so these are very common behaviors that we see from people, and this is not just related to being trans, but when you are a trans, if you are a trans woman or a trans man or non-binary, usually I see common mistakes or the same ones. And I feel like it's very interesting to go for those, because then you see sort of why this is a problem. So first of all, you need to gather a lot of information in topics that you're not particularly interested in. And you have to work against frustrations. It was never part of my life's aspiration to know how a rhinoplasty is being done. So the surgery of the nose. I never had that in my life plan or my bucket list. Yet here I am. I learned a lot of things that I didn't want to learn. And this is intimidating. So you have to work against your frustrations. Then a lot of the outcomes are very real for us. This is not just like me trying to gain some abs or whatever. Like, this is real stuff with real frustrations, depending on where you live as well. You have opportunity costs to pay as a woman and as a trans woman on top of what every woman goes through as well, right? So hope in terms of what you want to achieve can motivate you to do this research, but it can also be very dangerous because you're looking for things that sort of affirm you, like this confirmation bias. Like, I hope that my voice sounds feminine, so I'm putting more weight into people who tell me that my voice sounds feminine, for instance, right? And then you have people who are not honest with you because they try to be friendly. So that doesn't make it that much easier, because I would like to have as much objective information before I actually move as possible. And then some people are asking the wrong questions. So this is a very important one that I feel like I would like to talk about. So for instance, when it's about the concept of passing, like whether you pass as a woman or a man, like I try obviously to pass as a woman. This is sort of important for me. It's not for everyone the same. Most people can tell you whether you pass to them as either gender. Like, you appear to me male or female or somewhat androgynous. But most people cannot tell you why. And this was one of my experiences. I'm not sure how it was for you, but like when I started to look into this, you have sort of connotations. And then you come in talks with a surgeon and he tells you the thing that clocks you, sort of like that doesn't let you pass that well, is this area of the forehead. And then I'm like, are you sure? Because that's the first time I ever heard that. And there's a very good example that I heard from someone the other day. It's very easy for us to tell pretty much everyone whether food is good, but that doesn't mean that you know how it is prepared. We're good at the impression. Like, I can tell you how I feel about the food, but how it has been done and what exactly makes it good, I might not be able to tell unless I am the cook who is professionally involved in creating food and that sort of thing. Was this the same for you, by the way? Like, when you started with this entire topic, I'm genuinely interested.
If it was, well, yeah.
Like, like hearing about things.
Yeah, it was.
Not think
when
about
I was first learning about everything. It was,
yeah.
it was in seeing things from the inside, and hearing how the surgeons talk about how things are done and why they're done, and the perception of femininity when they have a scientific publication based on auto perception of femininity. And so it was definitely eye-opening, but these are things, like you said, that you don't think about. People don't normally think about. And this just sort of, they're ingrained in us, we're programmed to see things a certain way.
Yeah.
And societies taught us to look through a binary lens, and that gets in the way. We don't even realize it. It was very interesting in the beginning, over 10 years ago, when I was learning about the gender differences and everything, and working on writing descriptions for each of these, which I'm actually doing now again.
It's fascinating on one hand, because on one hand you try to quantify the unquantifiable, like what makes a woman appear feminine in some regards. And then you also have the other problem, like for me, for instance, it's a good topic about this, is like for the eyes, for instance, right? I like my eyes, I really do. But some aspects of them are more male, like, because of the bone that you have here. So you need to sort of try to balance, what do I actually want? You know, like suddenly I'm being confronted with choices of things that I like versus I don't exactly know how they turn out, but someone told me that they look more male than others. And that's another complication that you have, right? So suddenly you are pitching attractiveness versus the passability and all these kinds of things. And a surgeon cannot tell you that. They can only tell you about what is typically female. Whether you like it or not, you are the judge of that. And that's a different thing. And that gives me another segue into another thing that I wanted to point out. And that is something that I see so often getting wrong. And it's also in my job and trans women and for everyone else as well. Anecdotes are the weakest form of evidence that we do have. Just because a story is compelling, just because someone is telling you something that you can relate to emotionally or whatever, doesn't mean it's going to turn out the same for you. And quantitative data, wherever possible, is a very, very powerful tool because it sort of removes this danger of misrepresenting information, for instance. Let me give you an actual example. So one of the things that we always hear is like, oh, we have to protect the mutilation of children in trans people, or detransitioners are rampant. Everybody is detransitioning and whatsoever. But then if you ask about the numbers, how many people actually do detransition, it's a joke, right? I mean, not detransitioning is a joke. That's valid as well, but it's such a small portion. And while you were telling me this entire story about detransitioning, what happens to the other ones, right?
Yeah, it's scientifically what would be considered an insignificant percentage.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like, no, absolutely. And this is also what
can happen. Yeah, sure. You know,
and
just like, you know, complications after any surgery can happen, but some are insignificant. That's scientifically the terminology that they use. No, and it's possible that someone may choose to detransition, and it has happened, but it's the majority do not.
Yeah. And the point here is really like, it goes about, if someone tells you a story, for instance, oh, you know, like I had surgery with Facialteam, it went great. That doesn't mean it goes great for you. But also the other part is also true. You just because you see the loudest 1-star review doesn't mean a lot in the context of the bigger things in the end. You do start from there. I listen to a lot of trans women and I'm very interested in their experiences. But you need to know at some point that you cannot achieve the entire knowledge of the world. You have to focus on something. You have to know which risks are important and which ones are not worth dealing, because we have only limited time during our day and we also would like to transition while we're younger, right? And focus on the most important ones. And the hierarchy of evidence, this is what it's called, like it's a scientific concept, is very, very important. Anecdotes, and just because someone seems competent, an expert's opinion is not the end of be all. Try to get a variety of opinions and then try to ground it in science, which is a little bit difficult when it comes to aesthetics, but there are certain things that you can actually definitely do, and that is post-operative risks. What can I do from my side right now to reduce the risks of complications during anesthesia, during post-op care, all these kinds of things. So that is something that I really want to stress, because people are always like, yeah, but I heard from this one girl that did this and that. I heard from this is very, very difficult. And I would say leads you more down of a wrong path than more often than not, because then you're starting to decide on the feeling when you should not. It's really difficult. And yeah, and then the other problem is if you get surgery in your face. I think I made this example as well in the rehearsal that we've had. Every face is different. Everybody has a different face. You will not find one person who had the left side done by Facialteam and the right-hand side done by some other surgeon that I'm not naming right now, because that's the only way that you can truly compare the results. Every face is different. Everyone is very individualistic, and it comes down to much more than just, oh, I want to have the best surgeon. The question is, with whatever you do, with hormones, with makeup, I also pay a lot of attention that my makeup fits my face and not just like any face. What is the right thing for you? And for that, you need to understand what is the person that I'm trying to hire to do this job specialized in, and what are they really good at? It's not just like finding someone good. It's about finding the right person for you in the means of possibilities that you have, like money, travel, all these kinds of things. And that was something that was key in deciding for Facialteam. I think it's fair to say that I'm coming to Facialteam in 2 months, right? So
sure, we want to be transparent. Yeah,
exactly. Transparency is very important. Yes. Yeah.
And to be transparent also, when you were talking about, anecdotal information, sure. And Facialteam has some negative feedback out on the internet. You can find it.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, in the example we gave before, the feedback in general for Facialteam is positive, but it doesn't mean that we don't have some people who have been unhappy. Sure, we do.
What I can judge as a trans woman, definitely from negative things with surgeons, and this goes to all the ladies, even if you don't go for FFS or just for like surgeries in general. How does someone deal with negative feedback? It is absolutely impossible that you only get positive feedbacks because of the nature of the surgeries, there are surgeries. Surgeries are always difficult. There's always something that can go wrong. How do you deal with the negative ones? This is also how I start to sometimes review things. I go to the most negative reviews and I see how the providers have actually dealt with that, or whether there is anything being dealing with this. And this is something, I'm not here to advertise for Facialteam, but I can tell from my experience, the things that I did see is that you do take care of things and you try to change them. And the whole approach is not just like, oh, you're getting a surgery. It is about accommodation as well. It is about post-surgery care. It is about where you're located, like the hotel where you're also staying and everything. And this was so much more important than I have anticipated, because originally I went into this entire experience with, I need surgery. But that was not what I was trying to achieve. The entire process was about, I would like to understand what is possible through all the different means that I have. And is there something that I can do to make me feel better? And if you would have asked me a year ago, then I would have told you, oh, I'm only transitioning if I pass 100%. Oh, I'm only transitioning if this and that happens. And this person is not here anymore. Luckily, she was a little bit stuck up, and a little bit arrogant. But it is a process. And you have to make sure that you do not fall into the obvious traps, I think. And that is trusting things because of bad science. And we all do this sometimes, like we decide because of emotion when we probably shouldn't. And for me, this was very key, like to see how other teams are dealing with criticism as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leah. I just have to say that everything you're saying, I think, is really important for people to hear. Because it, as you say, it's a process and things need to be thought through carefully. And the research is very important in making sure that the priorities are ordered properly. And all of this takes time. It's not something that you can decide from one day to the next, right? And along your research process, did the topic of subtlety versus aggressive results come up? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, quite a lot, to be honest. So I think I have to start from the beginning because I like to do that, right? So at the start of my transition, I had this very sort of binary view in terms of things are either attractive or they're not, like you don't really consciously think about this. But then you get the experience of a woman, like the ugly and the good things. And the thing that happens afterwards is that I sort of started to separate this entire concept to passability, like passing as a woman, reducing the problems that I get from society. And I am lucky, I feel, because I'm feeling okay with appearing very feminine. I don't have any question in that for myself. This is exactly who I want to be. But you have these two avenues, right? One of this is this passability, and the other one is like being attractive or like completely different to what you had before. And this is something that I wanted to mention as well, because I don't hate my face. I don't hate how I look per se, but there are a lot of trans women. We are scarred oftentimes from what we have gone through, you know, like by just pretending that for some of them, it is important that it is aggressive. It's what you said, right? Like the aggressiveness of the surgery. But I feel like there it is more about changing something. I think for all surgeries, the goal is to look more feminine. I would say that is a fair assumption for most. If you go for female feminization surgery, I mean, it's in the name as well. But for me, I don't have a problem with my attractiveness. I like myself. I can say, I feel like I look beautiful, something that was unthinkable a year ago. So just like in this process, I was capable of saying this. And that was impossible for me to say. So during this process, I started to understand, there is more than just looking like an Instagram model, you know, like my nose, for instance, is a very good example. You can put my face everywhere, but my nose you will always recognize. So it's very, very important for me that this characteristic is kept alive. I do not want to change this part of the nose because it is me. And I also decided for myself that I want to keep my characteristics as much as possible. And that was exactly my experience with Facialteam. I had a talk with another with a girlfriend who summarized it really nicely. She went with a different surgeon, but she summarized it very nice. And this is also a great display of why you can come to different conclusions with the same information. She's also very, very informed. And she said, Facialteam and some other team that I just forgot now about, but like Facialteam in general has a very pathological view sort of on the face, right? Like, you know, we are trying to undo what testosterone did to your head if you didn't have it. So how would you look like if you were not exposed to testosterone? And there are limits to this, of course, but you know, like here, the bones, here, the forehead, on the chin and everything. Versus when I was talking with other surgeons, it was much more like, okay, so what is the nose that you would like to have? And would you like to have fillers in your cheeks and everything? And I was just like, whoa, you know, like, it's not what I'm looking for. I am getting personally very, very dysphoric, and this is different for everyone. And dysphoric means I have problems with what I see in terms of, it appears male to me and it feels wrong. When it comes to my face is extremely important to me. It is more important than my chest or anything else in me. This is the one thing that I identify myself the most with as a woman. As superficial as I sound right now, but this is just what it is. So in the end, this approach of, I think this is what you said with the aggressiveness, was definitely a key factor to decide for myself whether I knew this is what I'm going with, or I could go with the other one. And sometimes for trans women, I feel like things have to change a lot so they feel they transitioned, if that made sense. They do not want to be anymore who they were before. Neither do I, but I don't hate my face. I feel like I don't hate myself, right? It's okay to be me. And
yeah, well,
that's important.
Thank you for explaining that, because I think it helps to debunk the myth that Facialteam is not aggressive or too subtle in a way, because yes, like you said, you know, one of their central tenets is to return the contours to their pre-testosterone format. And that can be aggressive, because testosterone may have changed your facial features significantly. That means really aggressively taking away bone volume and changing heights and dimensions and projection of different features. So when people accuse Facialteam of being too subtle, it bothers us. But like you said, it's
don't you get the feeling sometimes that people are talking about completely different things? This is the other thing. Yeah. It's like, what do you understand with being aggressive? It's like, and when did this word become positive? I don't, it's completely boggling my mind. It's FFS is a term about a lot of procedures that you can do in your face. And just the rhinoplasty itself, so operating on this here, right, is a complex topic. And my experience has so far been, I could have asked for more if I wanted to. I mean, I'm getting the full program anyways, but like, you know, like in terms of the intensity, like how far would you like to do with this and the nose and here and everything? But it's not about that. It's like this notion of, oh, the more makeup I put on my face, the more feminine I look. No, at some point you just look like a clown because that's what their thing is, right? It's clowns have a lot of makeup, for instance, right? And it's just,
yeah, doesn't look natural.
yes,
Sometimes, yeah. So it's a fine balance between natural, feminine,
and on the
and
other hand, I also
human.
have, sorry, on the other hand, I just want to make it clear because I feel like some of my girlfriends are murdering me right now in the chat. I still want to say it is okay if you want to have an extreme approach on the aesthetics. Still fine, that's okay. It's not what I was looking for, or it's not what I'm looking for. Maybe I'm sitting here in 3 months and I'm going to go like, hey, Lilia, I'm going to do everything again. Cannot wait, this was so good.
Nobody's murdering you in the comments.
Oh, okay.
We have quite a few people here. Yeah. Thank you everybody for coming and listening. Mostly some just positive comments and thank you, and they agree with you. And one question here, which it's sort of a rhetorical question, I think, is who's to decide if we're passable?
Yeah, exactly.
Who decides that? And
well, no one can. No one can. And to be honest, I also it is a very problematic concept. But and I don't even look, in an ideal world, we should not have to aspire to it. But unfortunately, we live in a world where if I am applying for a job and I look visibly trans, I might not get the call back just because of how uncomfortable I make other people feel. This is the reality. Now I can make a political fight out of it. I can try to change people's minds. I get that. And I don't know whether FFS would be so successful, like whether a Facialteam would even exist if we had actually a society that would allow us to be who we are. I don't know.
We hope. Yeah, exactly. Facialteam probably wouldn't exist, and we'd be something different.
Yeah. But you're wonderful. Don't get me wrong.
We'd still be here, but we'd have a different name, perhaps.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So Susan mentioned that we're often our worst enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's a very good point too. And Violine here says she doesn't think you're wrong, Leah. You're not wrong.
Oh, there you go, girl. Exactly.
You're absolutely
right. Saying. Very good.
Yeah, we've got some people really active here in the chat. Thank you so much for coming and watching and participating in the chat with us. I did share 2 links in the chat while we were talking, Leah. One was for what was it? One was how to prepare for an FFS consultation. We have a page on our website that goes into a lot of depth about the questions to ask. It's not just for Facialteam, it's wherever you happen to have a consultation. You should have several, whatever surgery it is, and the kinds of questions you can ask. So it's sort of a little guide, and also another link to preparing for after surgery, because that's a big concern of people is, what do I have to do after surgery? Pain, what am I going to need? What do I have to buy? What's going to happen? What kind of creams should I have? And what are they going to give me? So that's also another resource, and I'll share another resource later on. But Leah, we've talked a lot about surgeries. What about hormones? Can you share with us what kind of resources did you go to? Like there's some that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Were you on those?
Yeah. So the problem with hormones is that you have, I think the beginning problem is that we are using medication that has not been designed for us specifically. It has been designed mainly for menopausal women in general. And, like every packaging that I get for all my medication, I'm using estrogen. None of it mentions trans women in there. So I just go by what my doctor tells me. And I had horrible experiences with the doctors in Switzerland. Like I had to start to, again, another topic, to get known in the topic. I had to get knowledgeable, even though I didn't want to, because I felt like I didn't get the answers. And this would also be one point that I would like to drive home. If you're doing things in your life that are important to you because they affect you, and it is your health and your health only, you ask until you understand it. And my doctor made the big mistake by belittling me, not directly, but she always said, like, oh, you know, you don't need to know. This is not that important. It doesn't matter. It's not a big difference. And then I said, well, okay, but if I do this, then this happens according to scientific articles that I read. And then, oh, no, it doesn't matter. This is not that important. And this was the point where I started to do self-study. And then 2 months later, I kicked her out and I went to another doctor. So the problem with HRT, and it goes the same with surgery, is that while it is simpler in terms of to start with hormone replacement therapy, you know, like, and it's not that definite, you don't need to be scared that you're doing so much wrong. It is very hard to get an initial understanding enough to understand what's going on with hormones in your body. And then I started to notice subsequently that all the women around me, all the cis women, they also don't have a clue about hormones, and they get really weird care by their doctors. I would say that in the block where I'm living, I'm probably the woman that knows the most about women's standard care when it comes to hormones and all the things that can go wrong, you know, like with hair loss and hormonal effects on your body, drop of estrogen, the drop of your estradiol, all of these things that are connected, and they're getting such subpar care. And I wonder why that is, you know? So first I went to Reddit, tried to start to read up, had a lot of friends comment on there. And then I started to I landed in different spots, let's put it that way. The only thing that I would like to say is, if you have the mental capacity and you have the patience to read through it, transfemscience.org is a very, very, very good source. It's a website that's probably the closest to non-published articles that you can get. It is entirely public. Ali and her other girls there are doing fantastic work in outlining very, very well-founded articles about what is proven and what is not proven. Because sometimes, I said this at the start, because we sometimes feel like, oh, we have to do a lot before something is happening. But with hormones, it is a long marathon. And unfortunately, there's not that much that you can do. If you adhere to 80% of what you should do, you're probably in a good spot. And the nature of it is as well, some of us react not that well to standard treatment. So you need help. But nobody can guarantee you that you're going to get a C cup or a D cup or whatever you want in your life. It's just not realistic. If someone claims things, and that goes as well for the surgery, there are limits to everything, and you need to be realistic about it. But I can also tell you that within the limits that we do have and the wonders of medicine, we can live good lives. And not just good lives, great lives. I started to accept myself in this year without surgery so much more than what I did before. And I was the same person who said, oh, if I don't pass, oof. If I don't look like this, oof. If I have to ever wear a wig, oof. Information gave me the strength to accept myself in the end, to see where I'm going. This is not a terminal illness. It's not an illness at all. It is just me being placed in the wrong body. Whoever is responsible, damn you. But I can have a good life, and that's the most important thing. And I can accept myself. That's also nice.
Awesome. That's wonderful to hear. I'm really glad, and thanks for sharing some intimate details of your journey, Leah. I just want to say at this point that I've shared the link that you were talking about, transfemscience.org. It's in the chat. And there's a comment here from one of our viewers, XL, asking about the scar across your forehead when you have the forehead surgery. If a surgeon is telling you to have that you're going to end up with a scar on your forehead, then you need to see get a third opinion. a fourth opinion and a fifth opinion. I've just shared a link, Excel, to a post about this topic. You do not need to have a scar across your forehead in order to have this surgery done. There are other options available which leave you with invisible scars, not visible ones. So moving on, Leah, really interesting information about hormones. How about mental health? Where's one of the places, or where did you find the best information on that topic?
So that one for me is probably more life lessons rather than scientific information. People were always telling me at the start of my transition, create your own tribe. And it really goes around that. Cut out people in your life that are not good for you. We are not just saying it as a catchphrase, you're valid and you're important and your mental health is important. Really, people who are not good for you do not belong in your life. Sometimes we cannot avoid it. As women, we deal with problems sometimes at the workplace that we cannot dodge that easily, but whenever you can, try to get rid of them. That would be the first advice. So sorry for all the people who are not nice. You can't
always cut them out of your life, but there are techniques which mental health professionals can help you with, to creating the boundaries to against this toxic energy that comes from people who aren't helping you.
And I also, absolutely. So I also think like the more you do that, the more capacity you have if something bad is actually happening. And I also think that a lot of the stuff that we sort of face and have to go through, sometimes it is in our head, but because of, like, for instance, if people are starting, like I'm being stared at all the time. I am 187, which is, I think, 6 feet, something. On a good day, like with the wig, let's say I'm 187 with the wig. I'm being stared at constantly. And I don't know whether it's because I'm a woman that is really tall or whether people are clocking me and they say, oh, look, it's a trans woman. I don't know what it is. And I cannot know, but I also started to care less. So the thing with mental health in this regard, what I wanted to say is that you get used to a lot of things, for better or worse, much more than you would ever imagine, and in a good way, right? Because at the start, this entire topic, surgery, hormones, what happens if people are starting to mock me? How do I deal with all this stress? All of this is a big journey. And what we do on big journeys is we make the first step at some point, and the step is little, and you will get there. Everybody gets there because you take little steps along the way. You don't have to do everything in one go, and you don't need to as well. And that's what I feel like sometimes with mental health is also important. It is okay if you take your time and you don't stress. You're the only person who can determine whether you're ready for a next step or whether you're not. I do say that I don't know a single trans woman who tells me, oh, I wish I would have waited a little bit longer before I started to transition. That is true. So we all wish that we would be younger and that we would have gone through the entire experience a little bit sooner. But within our transition, there is no reason for you to rush surgery or hormones just because you see something with someone else. We're living in a time where everybody has this curated self picture of themselves on Instagram. I don't post pictures of myself from the side. I hate my side profile. And you won't find any online either. There's a reason for this, right? I don't want to present myself from the bad side, but mental health is a lot about how to cope with things and carve out spaces where you can really sort of recharge and take your time. Don't stress yourself. Yeah, not sure that was helpful, but that's what I'm thinking on it.
I think so. Yeah, it's typical. When people first contact us, they want to do everything right away.
Yeah.
And, next week, eventually, they realize that this is something that takes time. You need an appointment, you have to have an evaluation. you review that assessment, and maybe you need to ask questions. Then perhaps there's another consultation, just like in your case, there were 2 consultations, one online, the other in person. Have some x-rays taken, those get reviewed. So rushing this kind of thing, well, there's a saying in Spanish, to translate it, with when you're rushing something, you always trip over, right? Something's always tripped over. So it's better to take the time that you need to really consider all the little tiny details, which are many, in order to until you feel like, okay, I've got all of the details covered here. I've worked through all of them really methodically, and I feel comfortable about making the decision I'm making at this point, without feeling rushed, without feeling like I don't really understand this. I don't really know what I'm doing, but anyways, these.
Yeah, and I feel like you will know when you're ready in a lot of ways. You will still be nervous. I remember the first time that I went out, like with makeup and just like looking pretty and everything. I was scared to death. But I also know at the same time that I'm ready to do this. And then in hindsight, it wasn't that bad. So I'm still here, right? So I survived. So that's the good news. That's the good spoiler. That's a different story.
So, but talking about this, the real life experience and the first time going out, what kind of advice do you have for our viewers on the what you called the behavioral aspect? You talked a little bit about makeup already, but learning to dress, learning to become you.
Yeah. So for me,
what kind of resources did you find for that?
Yeah. So I always had some people or creators on YouTube, and now I'm doing the same thing, right? Like, oh, it's all on YouTube. But you tend to find people who are really good for whatever you need, right? Whether it's the face shape or whatever, but at some point you just find someone that communicates in your language. And rather than just Googling constantly different topics and trying to make sense of those, I probably stay with these creators. I had a lot of them in terms of for makeup. There was there are a lot of channels that I find very good. They're not even trans related too much. Like at some point, I just moved on from this because I didn't have a beard shadow anymore, or not that much. So I was more than interested in the general topic of makeup and everything. But the thing is, whatever you see, the moment you try to apply it to your own face, you will notice whether it works or not. You will look funny at the start. I mean, I have some pictures on where I looked really ridiculous, objectively. No validation can change that fact, but trying out things is so important. Try to see whether something works for you. If someone is giving you, beard shadows are a really good topic. Like, how do you cover a beard shadow? I didn't know what color I had to use before that, or what kind of product that I have to use. Try it out. You may notice that this approach doesn't work for you, and don't be frustrated if it doesn't. I can guarantee you that most approaches don't work for you because you have maybe a different skin. It's going to crease because maybe you're sweating because you're living in a hot country, or I don't know, the person giving the advice doesn't know what they're talking about. But try out different things. And then every time you do that, you learn something new. I was terrified about eyeliner. Everybody told me oh my God, Leah, eyeliner, it's going to wreck your day. And now I'm like, okay, you know what? I got this, girl. It's not a problem, right? But it is experience, right? And it's not just about getting the perfect video, because at some point you notice that some of them work and some of them don't. And this was exactly the same for makeup. Fashion, it's simple because I have a girlfriend who is extremely skilled in it. And she tells me what I have to wear. Otherwise, I just don't look good. And it's that simple. No, but same with fashion. Go out, talk to other women, let them give you good advice in terms of, if you have broad shoulders, for instance, you should, there are clothing types that help your specific body type, that they don't look that exposed, that you're not making them more wider. So I cannot give you general fashion advice that will work for everyone. It is individualistic in the end. But you can acquire some general knowledge, of course. Yeah. But I'm not sure this was helpful, but yeah.
Send your friend my way. I need some fashion advice too.
Sorry, who needs fashion advice? You?
Me.
Oh, yeah, but you got this cute little Facialteam thing going on.
The uniform thing.
That
Yeah.
doesn't look that bad.
No, but yeah, as you said, bodies, and so many bodies are not the model body on the catwalk, and mine certainly is not. So it's hard to weed through
Yeah, and indeed.
what works for you, what
Yeah.
is and what doesn't, and whether you care or not.
And I'm all for dressing the way that you want. I'm all for that. But some things I just should not wear because I'm too tall and they just don't look good on me. And that's fine. Like I love dresses. I totally love dresses. I've developed a love for dresses so much. And some colors just look great on me. I love it. And I'm not afraid to say it. I'm sorry. It's just what it is. Also, I know some colors don't work with me very well. But you get to know yourself, and it is fun, and it shouldn't be a contentious topic. So if you can, have fun. With surgery, you won't have that much fun, but the topic of fashion and makeup, it can be a very fun thing to try out things, and getting over this initial shame. Oh, this is not okay. Oh, this is forbidden or whatever. Hey, you would not recognize me. You have no idea how I looked 1.5 years ago. I know a couple of makeup tricks to make me look this way. And I love it, but in a positive way. I love it.
Yeah, well, I think your positive attitude is infectious, Leah, and perfect example of, a great way to move forward and take it all on and do what you want, with the gender journey. So, thank you again for sharing your experience and your insights on this, because there are a lot of people who are just beginning, and this is definitely going to help them. So so for our viewers, this video, once we finish the live, is going to be saved here onto our channel for future viewing. And Leah, we've been going now for an hour.
As usual, we've been going over time.
It's flown. It doesn't feel like we've been talking like an hour.
No, I have another hour. Do you want to go on? Okay.
We could for sure. But I think people probably have other things to do.
Yeah, you had enough of me. Is that what you're saying? We can stay friends.
No, we can save it for a second session. That would be interesting.
Is that an offer? Oh, there you go. Good.
It is. It's an offer. Yeah. And you said that people don't have fun when they're having surgery, but I dare say that many Facialteam patients will refute you on that. They manage
I will crack jokes on the stretcher. I can tell you that. When I'm there, I'm going to be like, where's Lilia? Oh my God. Yes. No. That's what's going to happen.
So, Leah, do you have any final closing remarks that you want to share with the people watching this video?
Yeah, 3 points, and I keep myself short because I know you have other things to do as well. Before you talk with an expert on any topic, and an expert can be a medical professional, a surgeon, or whatever, try to acquire general knowledge beforehand so you can focus on what is individual to you. What I mean with that is you do not want Dr. Simon explain you what the word rhinoplasty means or what a type 3 forehead reconstruction means if you could talk about more specific things about your face. That will be the first advice. Try to understand the topic in the basics beforehand. Don't let the surgeon do this work for you. This is wasted time. Second one is don't smoke. Seriously, do not smoke. There's various reasons why you should not smoke. It is very, very stupid. And it's not for trans women especially. If you're taking hormones, don't smoke. If you don't take hormones, don't smoke either. But for us, it's especially like, do not smoke. It also affects post-operative healing. It increases the anesthesia risk. So if you have to take any advice from this, do not smoke. And then the other thing is, the last one, if you don't understand something about any information somewhere, ask until you understand it. Especially good doctors can explain you complex things in a way that you understand. You don't need to understand how to do an operation, but you should understand what they are doing. If they treat you, if they belittle you, or they don't take you serious, has happened to me, ask. And if they still do it, go to someone else. Seriously. It's too important. Don't be afraid and ask until you understand. It goes for everything in life. Yeah. Sorry, my camera failed. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that it's worth taking your time to get second and third opinions and be sure and make until you're sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a key point that we're trying to make here.
Yeah, maybe just one sentence on this. Do not go with your favorite surgeon first. That's the only thing that I would change first, because you can use these video consultations because you also know what the surgeons are starting to talk about. If you go with someone else first, you can compare it to what the next one is saying, because video consultations are most of the time free. But the topics that you talk about are always sort of the same. So I went with Facialteam first, but I would have had some questions afterwards if I had other surgeons talk before. So that would be my only advice. And now I really shut up. I'm so sorry.
No. You don't need that's a very good point to make. And I just like to add that with Facialteam doesn't limit you to have one consultation. So people, obviously after having the initial one, a lot of questions will come up afterwards. And once you get the assessment and you read a little bit more, then you can always ask for clarifications, and the ones that the coordinator can't help you with, then you can ask for another online consultation to speak with the surgeon again. And we encourage that. Okay. So I just wanted to say to Excel, who we mentioned before about the forehead incision, I've shared a link to our Facebook group. We have a peer group there that's been going on. I started 9 years ago, and it now has over 4,000 members. And I think you're in there, Leah. I'm not sure. And
let's say I don't use Facebook. I'm an embarrassment. I'm sorry. I don't use Facebook.
Well, and I suppose we have to get another group going somewhere else that's more open, because I know a lot of people don't want to be on Facebook anymore. So, but we started this a long time ago, and the group has a lot of people in it, and there it's very active. And we have people who are considering FFS, people who are in the midst of FFS, and people who, come out of the blue 3 or 4 years later and like, here I am, thank you so much, here's a photo, and are often active in responding to questions that people have before their FFS. So I encourage you, Excel, to go there and ask your questions to other people who have had the forehead surgery, and see what they say about what it feels like to have that done, and the scar.
I'm going to join that Facebook group this afternoon. I'm creating an actual Facebook account. This is what you've done.
Even if it's just for that group.
Yeah, and no, it's for Excel. I want to make sure that they get the right advice here. Right, just checking on people here. Gotta make sure that the good stuff is coming
you
out.
Come in and monitor for us, Leah. Yes. Well, thank you very much, Leah. I think we got everything in. No? Did we miss anything out?
I could go on for hours, but I think we covered the most. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just checking here. Catherine here said, great advice. So good to see you. Mentioning that hair transplantation can hide scars around the hairline, or the incision for the forehead, if it's crown or hairline incision. So yeah, we've covered all the comments and the questions here. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please give us a hand if you're still here. Put some applause in our comments. Let us know that you enjoyed our discussion. And remember, it's Pride Month. So if you are a friend, family, partner, companion of someone who is transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming, just show some consideration. Since not just this month, but every month, all the time. Let us know that you care and give them a little sign of support. Stay tuned for upcoming events. We're taking a little pause from our lives in July, but we do have 2 more coming up. One will be on Instagram next Monday for International Pride Day, and on the 30th, I'll have one en español, in Spanish, with one of our coordinators and one of our surgeons, Dr. Bailon. So, si habla español, ven a unir con nosotros. Again, if you'd like to keep up to date with and all of our activities, events, etc., now that we are reopening, then we will restart again our international consultations slowly but surely. And so please do sign up for a newsletter, and I will share the link to that in our chat before we go. Oh, we got lots of clapping. So Leah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope again.
It's been great. I'm absolutely positive that all the insights that you have shared today will be very useful for our future viewers.
I hope so. Thank you. Thank you, Lilia.
And we have a pending date for the future.
We do. Oh my God. Yeah, looking forward to it. Maybe we can
have to meet when you come to Marbella.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you very much, Lilia.
No problem. Thank you. And I always close with, remember to like, share, follow our channel, share this with your lovely friends who may be on a gender exploration journey, or maybe they know somebody who is and may learn from some of our videos on our channel, which are now over 200. Thank you, everybody. And remember, your health and happiness matter. Don't ever forget that. Bye-bye.